Hello and welcome to episode 1 of My Generation, a podcast about the generational gap between my teeth. No? Generational gap between the ages of 26 to 46 at the present moment, pre-recorded live here in KMAX Studios in the heart of Connecticut in association with Tennessee.
Tennessee! Woo! Woo!
TN. I don't know how to do that with my fingers.
I don't either. I don't have that much state pride to even try either, so.
Not enough state pride to do the hand signal.
No.
With me is a youngin' I lovingly call my son, Mr. Jeff DeMarco.
Thank you. Always a pleasure, my friend.
You're
my
more than
father,
welcome.
really.
That's true. I am your father. I am your father's uncle's sister.
It's a whole weird family thing.
Yes.
We don't go into it.
Podcasting my generation. Gonna have a talk today. Podcasting my generation. Listen to the words we say. Podcasting my generation. Starring Decency and Jeffrey. Podcasting my generation. Yeah.
We're going to kick it off old school just by gabbing. Come on, Gabby. Gabby Hayes, let's do this.
And now, opening Gab.
Jeff, how have you been?
I've been great, actually. Working a lot, but beyond that, pretty good. Can't complain. Been very productive. Been spending a lot of time with my son. Finally got my sleep cycle back on a human-like routine, so that's good.
No more anti-human sleep cycles.
No. Actually getting a solid at least 6 hours every day, so.
Oh, gosh, I can't imagine 6 hours.
It's my big thing is as long as it's a routine, I'm okay. But if it's like 2 hours here, 10 hours this day, that's whenever I get kind of screwy.
Mentally, it doesn't work. It
No,
doesn't work. I used to do night shifts. And you still work night shifts.
Unfortunately.
And yeah.
Supposedly they're going to move me away from it, but honestly at this point I'd rather just find a different job. So we'll see what happens.
Do you prefer night shift or would you like a day shift job?
Well, thirds are convenient because I typically don't have anyone to take my son to school in the morning. So by the time I get off work, I just, rush home, take him to school, and it's convenient for that. But beyond that, I hate it.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
I used to like the night shift. I think I told you before, because the night was mine. It was all me. And then people would wake up, and when I was like out for a walk with the dog early 5 a.m., and they're like coming out of their house, and I'm like, ah! I was the goofy night guy, or the creepy night guy. And but then going back to day shift was great. Mm-hmm. I don't miss it for that aspect. You are introducing something to your son.
Yes, actually, I am. This week, he's been watching me play a lot of Nintendo Switch lately, and this is the first time he's ever really shown that much of an interest in video games at all.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be cool to show him the ropes, teach him right. So I've been introducing him to my Super Nintendo collection, starting with Super Mario All-Stars.
You should start with Zelda.
I wanted to, and he enjoys watching me. He enjoys watching me play Breath of the Wild a lot.
Yeah.
But whenever it comes to the top-down old-school Zeldas, I don't know if it's just not as visually stimulating for him, but he really gets into some Super Mario. Mainly just the goofy sound effects crack him up. So
I guess I can take that. I right now am playing Breath of the Wild because I just had a hamburger with really chunky onions.
I see what you did there.
That's a little thing I did. Well, we're doing much better. I had a massive flu. It went away. It flew away.
So you're getting better, moving away from the flu and all that. How's Shelly doing?
She is fine, by the way.
She got really sick too, and ulcers, right? Like you guys went to the hospital.
Yeah, Shelly
had some
ended
ulcer
up
problems.
with ulcers. She had, and if it wasn't for the flu, she wouldn't have found. Well, they wouldn't have found out that she had them because it caused some problems, and then she had to go to the hospital, and we went to the hospital, and like, you have ulcers, and she's like, oh, and we were like, hey, and she was like, what? And I was like, hey. I was like, what? And so they're going to take care of him. They gave her this medicine that has a whole bunch of syllables, and it starts with the letter C, and it's like Cafaflecken Flukenflagen, and you take it in the morning, and then it's supposed to dissolve ulcers, which to me, that's another thing too. Growing up, ulcers were something that you had for the rest of the life. You didn't get ulcer dissolvation pills. There was no such thing. So it's interesting to see that progress taking place, and that should clean up in time, which is great.
That is awesome. I didn't even know they had something like that yet. That's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah. It's something that'll come up. Now, I don't know if it gets rid of them 100%, and I could be full of crap, but hey, when have I not been? That's my point.
Well, I do know, like, I used to have ulcer problems whenever I was younger, like in high school. And after like 6 or 7 years, I want to say, of just kind of like sitting on top of my diet and trying to make sure I didn't do anything too acidic or anything like that, they sort of healed up. So
okay, so
I don't know.
I guess it is something that will dissolve it. Yeah, she's not allowed to have like pasta sauce. She's eating Alfredo, no spices, no this, no that, no more sunflower seeds, which is great. No more seeds in the bed. And, so
Big problem.
but I'm glad all that's over. I am so glad all that's over.
Yeah, me too, man.
And now, tonight's main topic.
Tonight's topic is drugs.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, you and I have discussed how we want to tackle this delicately, because I don't want to promote and I don't want to glorify drugs. At the same time, I don't want to be preachy, but at the same time, I want to be preachy because I firmly believe that drugs are not good for you. Real life is real, and fake life is just going to lead you down a faker life.
Faker.
Faker. I make up words, and it's my rules. I made them up. But I'll go ahead and go down a history of which not many people know, but I'll do it anyway. For me, the topic of drugs was so taboo growing up. In the early 70s, when I was in school, there was gentlemen that came up in suits, and their job was, and I don't know if they were police or even something higher up, but they would come in and they would bring a suitcase, and they'd open up the suitcase, and every drug that was popular and up and coming was in the suitcase, and they would let you look at them, talk about them, and everything you wanted to know about them was presented. And there was marijuana, there was heroin, there was cocaine, back then angel dust, all the hip names back in the 70s. And so I was always taught drugs were bad. Okay. Drugs were bad. Okay. And I grew up with that. Then we had McGruff the crime dog. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I have. I've heard of that.
You have? I got a little plaque of passing his, say no to drugs thing. And we had the Reagan era in the 80s where I say no to drugs. And then came the late 80s, 1988. And I had moved out of my house and moved into an apartment. And my best friend at the time and his girlfriend were smoking weed.
That devil's grass.
Devil's grass. And I went up to him and I was like, what is the deal with that? What do you guys get out of that? Besides bad breath, morning hangovers, and forgetting what your last names are. It doesn't make any sense to me. And they was like, you just have to do it, man. And I was like, I don't think I could. I'm not about this. Well, they finally talked me into it. And it was actually a night that my best friend was out. My best friend at the time told me, no, this is not for you. I should have listened to him. His girlfriend at the time told me, if you're going to try it, I'd rather you try it while you're with me in case you do go crazy, like they said back in Dragnet, and jump off the top of a building because I think I can fly.
That reefer madness stuff.
Yeah. So I tried it. I ended up laying down on the couch for the rest of the night and feeling, A, guilty because I just did something I promised I'd never do. B, strangely euphoric listening to Joe Satriani albums intensely. And C, upset because I thought there would be more to it. I was like, why isn't this doing anything that I thought was so great? And so I chased that over and over again. Weeks went by, I tried it again. I found the gift of Pink Floyd. I went further, and then I realized, though, after about a month, the best of it is gone. You'll never have that again. You'll never feel that way you felt that time, and the time wasn't even that great, but I felt like I could achieve that again, and you just can't. So I spent most of my time trying to chase that feeling, and I never got it. It didn't stop me from doing it because it was the cool thing to do, and since I had done it, it didn't bother me to do it again. I knew the repercussions, what could happen afterwards, how you feel. But a piece of me, I think, broke off every single time.
Interesting.
It just felt like I was losing inner soul. There's something about it. There's something connected to that story in my heart about Adam and Eve and the apple and human beings and pot, or human beings and whatever drug, whether it's manufactured or natural. There's some things you're just not supposed to touch. That's not what they're here for. It could be something else that it's here for. But there's always that snake that tells you, man, get a hit off of this. And that's just me. And again, that's just me. Some people need it for medicinal reasons. Some people need it for this, that, and the other. But one thing that always stuck with me is the fact that growing up, it was so taboo to do it. And there was just so much about don't do drugs, don't do drugs, don't do drugs. And now, after 2000, mind you, I quit at age 27, everything. I just quit. So in 1988, I was 18 all the way up. So about 10 years that I messed around with this, that, and the other. I did not go far into any white substances. I didn't go far into any injections, thank God. Never mess with that. I've seen both on tables. And it was like buffet. It's like, help yourself if you want. And I'm like, no, that'll take me away from this planet. And this will make me spend every penny I have for the rest of my life. I'm not interested in those. No, thank you. And thank God I never tried them. Some of the other things I tried, I really wish I didn't. And those are very sad times and low times in life, which I luckily swam away from. Because it's a spinning circle and you get stuck in it, and all of a sudden you're drowning and you end up in a whale's belly asking yourself, how the heck did I get here? And
right.
There you are. So that was it. I remember walking home one day, or no, I used to walk around the block when I used to smoke the weed. And
the weed.
Me and my friends used to go house to house stealing light bulbs from the overhead lights and people's right in front of their doors, the outside lights. We used to steal the light bulbs because I wanted the room in where I lived to be as bright as possible. I had so many lamps. If it was dark, then that meant I'd have some bad nights or whatever. So we used to steal light bulbs. And of course, why not make yourself feel better by stealing something? What the hell's wrong with people? Needless to say, so I slowly got out of it, and I felt better. I was walking around the block, like I was saying. I got lost. Walking around the block. And see, these are all repercussions from drugs, mind you, young man. See, this is your future, right here. I was walking around the block, and I saw a stork with the little baby bag hanging down, and it said, "It's a boy." And I was walking up the street, and I saw that, and I said to myself, at that time, I said, you're 27 years old. Your sister's about to have a baby, and you're going to be that uncle that
right
in the corner, hey, come here, and you throw the kid up in the air. Oh, I lost him in the sun, Margaret. That George Carlin bit.
Yeah,
lands on the ground. So I said, that's it. This is ridiculous. I want to be the clean uncle, and that was it. And then I quit everything. And I've told my niece and nephew that, and they're like, oh. Then they turned around and went back to smoking their weed. So.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm kidding. They don't smoke.
Okay. It's like, that's kind of a slap in the face.
So that's my story. That's my drug story. That's what happened, and it was not a fun time. There's a bunch of stories in between which I'd rather not go into. But the reason that I want to do the show today is what a turnaround from those days to nowadays, where I'm mind blown at this whole legality thing and everything that comes with it. But I want you to go ahead and tell me your story.
It's interesting you say, especially nowadays, like 2000s forward, there's a lot of, there's really been a real turnaround. Well, I don't know, like growing up in the 90s and stuff, it was still taboo, like everything, pot, all of it.
Right.
So I definitely grew up with the I remember the crime dog, but for me, it was more that dare lion. Yeah, I can't think of its name. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I almost want to look it up.
Here, let me find a picture real quick.
Oh,
That
so
guy.
Dare, it's the Dare cat.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? The Dare lion?
Yes.
I thought you meant Dare lion, like one word, Dairy lion. And I thought,
No, the
he
way I
drinks
speak
milk?
sometimes is pretty ridiculous. So, so yeah, I grew up with this guy waving his finger at me and everything. So growing up, I was very, very staunch advocate for sobriety in general. And then I had older siblings that dabbled in pot whenever we were in high school and whatnot. And
Don't say
in my
what not.
household, it was bad. All of it was bad.
Son, don't say what not.
Oh. I'm sorry, Father.
No, go ahead.
Fortunately, I was in this position where, and this sounds cold, and I don't mean it that way, but I grew up with my older siblings making a lot of mistakes, so I didn't necessarily have to repeat them myself. I kind of watched what they did and learned from that.
That's fine.
Like my older brother was kind of in and out of rehab for crack at 16 and 17, and that was rough business. Never tried it or anything like that.
God bless him. Yeah.
Yeah. And my sister had some pill issues. She still does. I have no idea where she's at the moment. But, so I've seen the extreme negative side of it to that extent. But I still ended up going down that road a bit. I don't want to go too in depth with it because like there were definitely some lows and whatnot. But it all started in college. Right. I was 18 and all my friends at the time started smoking pot. Now, I'm not against pot. Like, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I kind of treat it, or I view it similarly to alcohol. I feel like if you can do it responsibly and you can keep your together, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to enjoy it occasionally. But at the time, especially, I was kind of like you, I just did it all the time.
Right.
I was always chasing that first time where I discovered the Beatles, which I do owe it that. I discovered the Beatles through pot. So
thank you, Beatles, and thank you, Weed.
Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds, the first time you ever get high, that's a trip for sure.
I bet.
Yeah, so there was that. But unfortunately, it went from pot all the time to me dabbling in other things. Like I did kind of dabble in pills, which I'm ashamed to admit, but luckily I never had a severe problem with it. Just tried a few different ones here or there.
Right.
And I remember it was about 3 years before the birth of my son. Are you familiar with, I'm trying to think of the actual name for it. I think it's called Spice.
No, unless you're talking about the girls. No clue. Or unless
that is a
something-
drug in its own.
The food spices, of course, but no. And that's another thing too. Names that you're going to come up with are alien to me because I am so out of the drug loop.
Okay, well, about I want to say it was 7 years ago at this point. There was this whole legal marijuana craze, and I don't mean the actual plant itself being legalized.
Right.
There was this thing a lot of companies were doing, and most of them were kind of like basically legal meth labs, more or less, just because they found loopholes they could go through.
Right.
They would create synthetic marijuana, and they would market it as incense or spice. That was the common name for it, but there was many different names. There were some called like Funky Monkey or Mr. Smiley, just strange stuff like that.
Yeah,
but it was completely legal to sell and buy in gas stations because it's just the compound of it wasn't illegal.
I remember that in the news vaguely. Yes,
I smoked a lot of that.
Oh no,
a lot of it. I had a problem with it for a couple of years, and I'm ashamed to admit it now and never go back to it or anything like that. But it was a real problem. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was so in the throes of it that for about 2 years, man, I blacked out. This was around the time that I had kind of dropped out of college and everything. So I was going through a very strange funk, and that it was definitely bolstered by this strange fog I was constantly in because of it. And this is the type of stuff that would make you hallucinate if you weren't careful with it. But what was strange was you never knew what it was going to get. There was no consistency with it. It was some pretty it was some pretty hard stuff, and I didn't realize it at the time because in my mind, oh, it's just like pot, except that it's legal, so I can't get in trouble.
Right, exactly.
You know?
It's just not
Yeah.
really regulated, so you just go ahead and help yourself.
Exactly. So eventually, feds wised up, caught on to the act and eventually criminalized it. But I went through that for about 2 years until this is. I don't want to get too heavy, so I'm going to skim over some of the details.
Of course.
But I remember the last time I smoked it, and this is what threw me off because I had built up enough of a tolerance for it to where I could smoke, I want to say, like maybe a few pipes worth of it and still be functional, still be able to go to work or whatever, which is terrible. You should never get to that point. But, at the time I was. Yeah. And I remember I took one hit off somebody's pipe that they had packed just with some stuff that I knew for the most part wouldn't mess you up that much. I thought I was having a heart attack, like instantly. As soon as I took the hit, I started to black out. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I couldn't feel my face. My hands were doing this number, shaking violently and everything.
That's tremors for those who don't have a visual.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Those are tremors. Tremors, I should say.
Trembles.
Tremors, I think, is a tool that you use to carve wood. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So, I thought I was having a heart attack, and then I was like, okay, let me go calm down in my bedroom. So I go to my room. I'm just laying there on my bed, heart pounding out of my chest, ignoring texts from my girlfriend at the time, just trying to calm down. Next thing I know, I wake up 6 hours later, giant pool of my own vomit, just face down in my carpet. Been left there for 6 hours like that. Got up, dried up vomit all over my face.
Oh, yeah. I thought someone was going to tell a vomit story tonight.
Yeah. So at that point, I was like, okay, this is what rock bottom feels like,
Sometimes
So
you need that.
Yes, you do. So after that was the last time. I backed away from it, never looked back. Later on, I found out some people had such a problem with it that they actually started opening up like addiction treatment clinics, which I could buy because I actually went through a strange period of withdrawals from it for a few weeks afterwards. Yeah. And, that's embarrassing. I'm not proud of that. But luckily, I nipped that in the bud before my son came along and everything. So
no pun intended. But I'm sorry.
You're fine. But even after that, because I'm stupid, I still smoke pot. And I'm not against pot in the same sense. I don't know. Would you say that you're against it or just against the idea of people doing it all the time?
I am. That's a very good question because of my current state of life. I have multiple sclerosis. So I'm not against the use of pot for pain, aches, and everything that comes with the MS. I don't do it just because of I firmly believe, I can't answer this with a yes or no. I can get addicted to pot. People say it's not addictive. I disagree. I definitely was addicted to pot.
I was addicted to pot. I understand.
Yeah.
So.
And I do think it's not a gateway drug. Bull crap. Once you reach that high and realize you can't get any higher than what you are. Because I've always noticed that, the more you smoke, the most, all of a sudden you just reach a point where, like, that's it. Either I go to sleep with a massive headache, or it's just the headache's going to get worse and worse because nothing else is going to happen here. Brain's so screwed. Oh, I'm recording and saying that. My brain is so screwed. Welcome to the pod episode of... Forgot what the show is. Okay. Gateway drugs, Kev. Yes, I firmly believe that pot is a gateway drug because once you reach that ultimate high, and you've basically pounded the headache, you're like, okay, this sucks. What else can I do to get me feeling more? I want more. So you go on to the next thing. And then if that doesn't reach it, you go to the next thing and either you die or you just end up in the hospital trying to recoup from that wonderful ride that doesn't exist. It's always like a giant lie to me. But okay. So to answer your question, am I against it? Is the question?
Yeah.
It's a mean mistress, my friend.
It's a mean mistress.
Yeah, I guess I would be. But I'll tell you what, if I reach the point where I'm going to need it to cure things, I hope that it comes in a pill form that doesn't get me all goofy. Goofy. I hope it's a THC pill or something of that nature, because I do believe it's useful in some ways.
Oh, for sure. There's definitely a lot of medicinal properties to it, which is fascinating. I've actually been looking up a lot about, which granted, I don't have any interest in putting my son on it, but I've been looking up a lot about how certain autistic children actually benefit greatly from cannabis oil. Or is it? I don't think it's called cannabis oil. I might be wrong on that, but it's basically they remove they remove all the THC, so it's just the. I wish I knew the science behind it a little bit more.
No, that's fine. They remove all the crap and keep the good stuff that's in there.
Yeah, supposedly it's supposed to be pretty good for autism, so that's something I wouldn't mind looking into as he gets older, because I definitely want to avoid things like Adderall or Ritalin, which are pretty harmful in and of themselves.
Well, that's the point. The manufactured crap is what's even worse than the natural crap, and people try to manufacture something.
For sure.
Going all the way back to Timothy Leary or whoever the guy's name was that started up the acid trip. Trying to open your mind, man. And who knew the word man had 7 syllables?
Man. But even more recently after that, I wouldn't necessarily say that I had a problem with pot. Because I agree with you on so much of what you're saying.
Right.
But at the same time, I wouldn't say I'm against it. Like, I think that's the only real difference in how I feel about it as opposed to you, because I do believe that if you're the right type of person, and you really have to be the right type of person, it could benefit you in very small doses, you know, but the thing is, like you said, it can definitely be a gateway, especially if you have an addictive personality. Like for me, I should have never really picked it up because I have a problem just quitting smoking cigarettes, which I quit again, by the way, 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Hopefully I stick to it this time. We want to talk about real drugs. Jesus.
Oh, God. Smoking cigarettes is very hard to quit. 20 years under my belt.
Dude, nice.
Yeah, I smoked 20 years and then I quit. How long have I quit? Since 2009. So almost 10 years.
Impressive.
But go ahead.
Impressive. You're fine. But I feel like I'm one of those people who shouldn't smoke it. You know, I lied to myself for the better part of the last 6 years, convincing myself that I was better off for it. And I never did it all the time, especially after my son was born. I was very cautious about not being one of those guys that just stayed high 24/7.
Right, of course, because you're a father now.
Yeah, exactly. But I kind of felt like a borderline alcoholic with it, where every weekend or every day I didn't have my son, that was the first thought that would hit my mind.
Of course.
When can I get some? You know? And that's not good because, especially with my personality, it would lead to something else. I know it would. It has in the past. I don't know why I kept on teasing myself like it wouldn't. So about a month ago, actually, maybe a little less than that, completely cut it out. Done with it. No more.
Just talking about your son, or you're talking about the weed?
Yeah, my son's gone.
Oh,
no more. No, the weed. Yeah, so finally about a little under a month ago, I quit smoking.
Congratulations.
So, thank you.
And I know that's hard.
Yeah, it was, but luckily for me, whenever it came to pot, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't addicted to getting that high.
Yeah.
I never liked the process of getting it. I never really liked the smell of it, anything like that. So it was kind of easy because I could always weigh out the good and the bad would always slightly outweigh the good. So it was like, okay, well, finally I just needed that little extra push. I don't know. I guess I had just convinced myself at some point, because I don't drink that often.
Says the man with the picture of the Tennessee whiskey bottle.
Yes, I know that. I don't drink that often because growing up, I had there were some bad experiences with alcoholism in my family and stuff. So I always tried to avoid it because I knew it would probably lead down a slippery slope.
Same here. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I do enjoy the occasional drink, but I just, I guess I had justified it in my mind thinking, well, at least it's better than alcohol or whatever,
Yeah.
Really shouldn't be doing either one that often. So, finally 100% sober for the first time. And
how's it feel?
awesome, actually. Like all week long, man. It's nuts just what thinking clearly can do for you. I've done 3 comic strips. I've gotten some art done, all kinds of good stuff. So
Yeah, when the fog clears, it gets. I understand that completely because I went through the same thing, and because by the time I was 27, I mean I was 27 and 28. I was in rock bands and stuff, but I didn't do any writing. But I did a lot of playing out, but it wasn't really music I liked doing, and so getting the fog lifted added to more piano playing, more guitar playing, getting back into the groove of doing things. Oh, yeah. I love when the fog lifted. That was just such a great feeling. I wanted to talk a little bit about what it was like to, you mentioned getting them and what you had to do to get things and the difference between then and now. And this is more of a view of our culture nowadays than anything because I don't know what I grew up listening to Cheech and Chong records, and you get, who is it? It's me, Dave. Dave's not here, and and it was that type of situation. You'd go over to a friend's house and see if he had anything, and if he didn't, for me, growing up in the D.C. area, we had to go to D.C. That was like the last resort, and we would have to go into the city to DuPont Circle, which is like the center of disgusting D.C. at that time. Before Disney came in and painted it, before it was cleaned up, and we would walk around, and you would have to. We walk around, and you would have to go from bushes to bushes, going, listening first of all, because someone would go, "Cess, Amelia," or whatever the word was back then,
right?
Got some drugs. You'd hear that from down the street or something, and so you go. Or there was another thing. Vaguely, I remember something about shoes over the telephone wires. Like that was the neighborhood area where you could go. But I can't remember what that pertained to. It could have been worse. But so we would go there to get it. And I've had some very shady nights where I thank God I'm alive for coming out of that. And then you think about, did you have to go through those type of lengths just to go and get a stupid little bag of crap?
Luckily, no.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, there's been a few times where I've done things outside of pot where I had to go to similar links, but luckily
you ever
those
dress
are
up
few.
like a woman and pretend that you were Bugs Bunny? Is that normal? Nowadays, it astounds me that you can go down to a bar, sit there, and I love looking at these people that own the bars or work in them. And then they get interviewed on the news, and they are the dumbest people I've ever seen in my life. I can't take it. I watch them, and they're like, "Yeah, if you come down, you can purchase. We have Jill's juice on sale for $5. Come on down. Come on down."
I could listen to a whole show of Stoner Kevin, by the way.
That would be. Hey, and another thing is my voice was different. I remember how different my voice was and how different I was. And the lengths I would go through to entertain my friends, like, I lip sync to music. I used to guitar sync to guitarist and all that stuff. But it got to the point where I was just making a fool of myself. And, I start this party at my house and everybody's like, "Hey, man." And then at the end of the night, I'm there by myself and I'm still going, "Hey, man. Oh, there's nobody here." And it was so stupid. It is just such a blur and it's ridiculous. But the good thing that came out of it was the fact that I was able to learn enough to tell other people crap not to do. You know what I mean? It's kind of a really stupid crutch to use. It makes you feel like a doof even saying it sometimes. But at least it's like I know what the inside's like, so I can tell you if you're on the outside instead of you having to come on inside and take a look for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And it also gives you this certain allowance of true clarity, which I don't. Yeah, I'm not a proponent of people doing it just that way they know how it feels to really be sober. But there's something really cool about that level-headedness you get. You appreciate sobriety that much more, I think, is what I'm trying to get to. Yeah. There was another thought I was about to.
Well, you have respect for it as well.
Yeah,
You have
exactly.
respect for something that you feel like you should have been the whole time kind of thing. I really wish I never touched it. But then again, I'm glad I don't have that naivety to what it is, because if I had that, I would probably... Like, I love my sister to death, my sister Gina, but she is of the mind that when it becomes legal in her area, she wants to try it just to see what it's like. And I'm like, you saw me growing up and what I went through, and I don't think it gave me MS, but I'm sure it didn't help all the things that I did. And and it's like, doesn't that tell you enough? And then what my mom went through with her addictions, and what Dad went through with us and with me, and you know, and all that. I don't. There's stories of my dad. He's passed now, but black tar heroin is what killed him. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He,
I was like, Jesus, that's heavy.
No, he. There is rumor that he smoked it once in the Navy, which I can't imagine. My dad was very. He tried to be the best that he could be. You know that commercial, "Be all that you can be." He wrote that. No, he didn't, but he should have.
Yeah, luckily my brother, at the 11th hour, managed to pull himself up by his bootstraps. I think a lot of that was getting married and having children. He's got 3 now, and he does good. Like, he still smokes pot occasionally, but it's not. He doesn't have the problems with things that he used to. But it was hard on him for a long time, and even now, like, I mean, I'm still very close with him, and I love him to death. He's not the same, you know. Like, there's
something missing.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between him growing up and how he is now, and it kind of breaks my heart to see it. But
it's sad.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So before we continue on, I definitely want to make a huge point of the fact that this show is about the drugs, and I'm so glad we got it out from underneath us, because it's one show that I would be harboring to do. So that's the reason it's episode 1. So thanks, you guys, for listening. I hope you don't judge us because of it. And now,
yes, please.
Yeah, please don't. And if you do judge us, I'm glad we got this show out so we can figure out who our listeners are in the future.
Weed out the bad ones.
Weed out the bad ones.
No pun intended.
And now, current projects.
All right, so current projects, brother. What are you working on?
Well, right now, Kevin, I am working on coping stuff, which I had mentioned in episode 00 that we are prepping for that.
Yes.
I kind of went through a couple of weeks just because of work and other things where it was getting frustrated creatively. I was just having a hard time sitting down and really getting stuff done. But This past week, I've gotten 3 or 4 sketched out, and those are great. So we're working on the color and inking for all that, or at least we will be this weekend. Right. I just now put up a new piece of art on my art shop and my website. So you can buy that for as low as $19. You can get canvas prints and all that good stuff.
It's a beautiful picture. If I think I know what you're talking about, is that the Lunar Babe?
That is Lunar Babe.
Oh, Lunar Babe is awesome.
Yeah, which I actually drew that for my younger brother because he does music on SoundCloud, #evolution, but he does had to plug him.
At least you didn't do this. I smacked
No, he actually spelled out
your fingers together to make the hashtag. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're fine. But he just asked me if I could do the cover art, and he wanted a sexy chick. Yeah, he wanted a sexy chick in space. And I was like, okay. So then, I came up with that, and I liked it so much. I was like, hey, I can sell this,
she's going to be freezing. I mean, sure, she can breathe because of the helmet, but in outer space, it's like sub-zero temperatures, and she's going to catch a cold.
Well, the thing with her being a lunar babe, Kevin, is she is not of this world, so she does not follow the same rules as you and I.
Then why the hell is she wearing a helmet?
I don't know. But it was fun to draw.
It looks beautiful. It is a cool picture.
Thank you.
And you know what I'm going to do is link it in the show notes, too.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I have to, because it is a cool picture.
Thank you. And honestly, I think that's it for me right now for current projects. What about you?
I have finished my 10th song for the 1980 to 1989's Spring Memories album. So
awesome.
That's 10 songs done, and what a great feeling. It should be out in May.
Yes.
I've been working really hard on it. I just all of a sudden got depressed because I thought of Don Rickles passing.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That set me off. Oh, I found a prospective dude for the Metal Pedal podcast,
Oh.
And but he hasn't gotten back to me, so it might not be a prospective dude. So, but he is a prospector.
Prospector.
And he dances like this and goes, "Hi, I'm gonna go ahead and do a heavy metal podcast." No, he doesn't. But I'm still looking for a co-host for the Metal Pedal podcast. If anybody out there loves 80s metal and knows enough about it to definitely talk about some hair bands, let me know. That would be great.
And now we say goodbye.
Well, please know that you can find Jeff at
jeffdemarco.wordpress.com.
and you can find Zerby at
zerbinator.wordpress.com.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I should have you be a... Oh, you are. And thank you so much for covering the subject. It was a hard subject to discuss without... I really did not want to promote it. I wanted to get it out. And I'm glad that we got to talk about that. Yeah, we did do a good job. What is a good topic for our next subject?
That is a good question. I think I still want to try to avoid presidential stuff.
Yeah, me too. Do you want to talk about girls?
Yeah, actually. Sexuality in general. Oh.
Sexuality.
Yeah.
God, we're covering drugs and then sexuality. No, we got to do something in between. People
yeah, that's too much seediness.
Yeah. Seedy entertainment, that podcast is. Well, join us next time when we cover video games and the history for both of us.
Right on. All the way from Atari to Xbox Scorpio.
Xbox Scorpio? Is that what's coming out?
Have you heard about that thing?
What a sting. No.
Man, it's intense.
And do you know what's, what's so intense about it? Is that this is going to be dated within 5 years.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's the only downside to podcasting. It's such an immediate art form. You run that risk.
And then something like the PlayStation Dune. Or, or some new company. Tiger Sport. I don't know, some stupid name. Well, join us next time when Jeff DeMarco says...
Thanks for listening to the show. Play video games with us.
I joined you on the slurp, though. I did the same thing.
Maybe we should just slurp together.
Oh, God, my wife would be so jealous.
All of Zerbinator's music and podcasts are under the Creative Commons license, which allows retelling and rebroadcasting as long as the author is notified and credited. For more great escape pods, please visit www.zerbinator.wordpress.com. If you would like to contact Zerbinatorland, you can send an email to instrumentally@gmail.com or give us a call at 571-408-ZERB or 9372.
My generation